Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first ever LinkedIn Live. I want to thank everybody who's joined on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and wherever else you're joining in from. It's an absolute honor to have such esteemed company for our first LinkedIn Live. And on this special day, on the ILO's World Safety Day, it's poignant that we're here to discuss a theme of democratizing safety through conversation. Because the ILO's theme for today is revolutionizing health and safety and the role of AI and digitalization at work. However, for this discussion, rather than focusing on AI or any other tech for that matter, I really want to focus on people, processes, and the conversations that drive better safety outcomes. So, without further ado, I want to welcome our guests. So, Lama, she's the Enterprise Solutions Engineer for MENA at Procore Technologies, joining us from Dubai. Lama specializes in helping construction companies leverage digital tools to streamline operations, improve collaboration, and importantly, enhance safety outcomes. With a deep understanding of both technology and on-site realities, Lama has been instrumental in guiding organizations through digital transformation journeys and prioritizing people as much as processes. We're excited to hear her take on AI and digitalization and how that can help make safety more proactive and integrated. Say hello, everyone, to Lama. Next, I want to introduce Ben Legg. He's a global vice president of health and safety at Digital Realty. He's got decades of experience leading safety strategies across complex, high risk environments and working on some of the biggest projects here in the region in his previous roles. Ben is known for driving a culture where safety goes beyond just compliance. It comes as a core value. He's been at the forefront of integrating technology into health and safety practices at a global scale, making him a perfect voice to share how digitalization and AI are reshaping safety in the real world operations. And then last but not least, we've got Ali Diab. He's the design and engineering manager at BK Golf. Ali brings a unique perspective, sitting at the intersection of engineering, construction, and safety, with a hands on experience working on large scale projects in the Middle East. Ali understands the daily challenges faced on safety and how smart, practical solutions can bridge the gap between design intent and frontline safety. His insights into applying technology in a fast paced construction environment will be invaluable to today's conversation. So, welcome everybody. How's everyone doing?
Yeah,
All
really
good.
good. Thank you.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So look, it's fantastic to have such a diverse kind of set of stakeholders, right? Each of you come from different aspects of the construction life cycle and from different kind of elements of it. So we've got Ben from an asset owner and operator perspective. We've got Ali from a constructor, and then Lama from a technology solutions provider. So we're gonna kind of through this discussion trying to correct some misconceptions and discuss how people should be the center of what we do and how they're going to change the industry that we love. So, without further ado, the first question I want to kind of put to you all is: having spent a long time deploying technology and working with safety professionals, improving safety outcomes, I've seen that there's a symmetry, right, between successful implementations of technology and successful implementations of safety, and it's almost always to do with people and their behaviors. Yet, in both, we seem to take too keen an interest in trying to change the people rather than look at some of the underlying processes. So I just want to kind of talk about some of the issues you've experienced when the two transformations come together. So when we try and transform safety and technology, and the two things come together. So Ben, if I can come to you first.
I mean, it's fabulous to be here and having, like you say, this diverse group, because I think at the heart of that lies some of the issues that we have. We have diverse groups operating in silos, and when you then start to talk about the transformation and digitizing a lot of the way that we do work or bring new technology in, understanding what the individual actually needs to be successful at the front line is not really always understood. And what I'm seeing today and some of the issues that I think are quite prevalent is that a lot of the safety clutter that we've had before of having lots of permits and lots of pieces of paper are now just being digitized. So again, we're kind of importing challenges into the kind of world of work as we see it today, without stopping and saying, well, what actually makes sense for the individual doing the work? And how do you then bring all of that content into one place so you have a more holistic view of the world of work rather than all these silos that we see? So where they're running in parallel, I just think we end up actually importing more risk, whereas we should be stopping and working out what is it that we actually need and what insights do we need to derive before we import some new technology into the process.
100%, and I've seen that firsthand. And so, Lama, how do some of the things that you work with on a day-to-day basis help to kind of stop taking analog clutter and turning it into digital clutter?
First of all, thank you for having me here, Prakash. Often, when we talk about safety and technology, we only focus on the tools in hand, but the real progress happens when the technology supports the people. So we kind of think of it as human plus tech rather than human versus tech.
Mm,
The question becomes, do we copy what we're doing today into the technology of choice, or do we revisit how we're doing it in the first place? And too often, the friction exists in how the process is being done. Safety data, as well as other project data, not only safety, is everywhere on site. It's inspection forms, it's tasks, it's checklists, delay logs, and approvals, and everything, voice notes, WhatsApp. The challenge isn't the lack of data. There's too much data to be dealing with.
mm.
But the problem is that it's fragmented in different areas and different tools and different systems that they don't speak to each other. And often it makes the daily job even a bit harder. So when you bring all this data together into one platform, one ecosystem, that changes the plan and the game. And you're no longer juggling between the different tools that you have, rather than focusing on one interconnected platform, one source of truth, where you can start spotting the dots, or the dots where you can start identifying patterns and spot risks and make sure that you have the time to have an action
Yeah,
towards what's happening inside, right? And to drive more efficiencies.
absolutely, absolutely. And Ali, we talked previously about, sometimes the digital is not the answer, right? Sometimes we need to look at some of the processes. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Exactly. Sometimes, and I agree with Ben and Lama what they said, but sometimes it's not just digitalization; it's the process itself. So there is no point bringing a process that's not effective and making it
Mm,
digital. We need to look at the pain point. We need to look at the persona of our customer, and in that case, the customer is the man at the work face. Really, our workers. What are the pain points? How we can make it different. This is like if you take the analogy moving in from landline mobile communication in one step. So if you have to go, let's imagine a country without any communication, you don't need to move to landline or telegram, landline and mobile phone. You can now jump to mobile phone, and construction has been lagging in digitalization, and we can make big
mm.
jumps now. We don't have to, with our process making digital, and just talk about the one single platform. Sometimes maybe we need to start with small solutions, then integrate them in a platform, because one of the big problems that we face as constructors were people wanting to sell you
Mm.
products rather than solutions. So if we go to the understanding of the problem and the process, then we can look at solution rather than products.
Absolutely, and we're going to touch on that point a little bit later on. So I'll come back to that point because I think Lama will have something interesting to say on that. In terms of I suppose what we're not saying here is that we shouldn't digitize at all, right? It's rather that the process of digitalization needs to kind of re-examine how we do things and what the risks are if we don't digitalize, right? So Lama, like, and maybe touching on the point that Ali just made is what are the risks if we fail to digitalize, if we carry on doing it already?
So traditionally in construction, especially in data-heavy environments like the construction and other type of, in all sorts of projects actually, often we rely on reporting that happens after the fact, based on like scattered information in different areas, again, email, pictures, WhatsApp, and others, and we start reporting backwards.
Mm,
That's where technology can start helping, especially when we talk about platform based. And I'm gonna amplify or focus on the word platform for a bit, because I'm gonna come back to it later. And really, with these platform-based solutions, that's where we can start seeing value, because it gives our team the real-time insights into what's happening on their sites, from safety compliance to trade coordination, and then they can start act quickly and reduce the risks and keep everyone accountable, right? We need somewhere where everything is held accountable for the people that are responsible for the tasks. That kind of a proactive approach helps reduce risks, keep everyone safe, and increase the productivity, right? And again, I'm going to come back to my platform kind of emphasized words. The beauty of having a platform like Procore is that you can definitely have your own workflows and controls on every step, on every stage, and update the things with the flexibility that you would required with time. And for leadership, that's going to give the overall snapshot in real time of what's happening on the project, what's happening from a time, from a cost, from safety, from quality, and everything that happens in between. Now, what I'm saying is not that Procore is the solution to all the problems. We do have a lot of very good solutions that do specific things in construction. You might still need different systems that does exactly what you need them to do.
Mhm.
But as an organization, you need to make sure that these systems of choices are connected together,
Yeah.
integrated, speak the same language, and can be connected with integrations or others. So, for example, let's take an example of Procore. Procore's app marketplace is where you can go ahead and see the different systems, like the integration that we have with Navatech, something that we're really familiar with Prakash here.
Yeah.
So we allow the
Yeah.
companies to choose their own preferred solutions, but at the end of the day, give them a platform that is flexible enough to connect all the dots together and prepare for what's coming for the data analogy and trend analysis and AI and definitely what's coming next.
100%. And Ali, just coming back to you on this, right? You know, in terms of the lack of digitalization or the kind of inertia towards moving towards digitalization, we were speaking earlier about some of the reports from the management consultants about the state of construction and how it's not changed much. Can you just to kind of elaborate on that point?
Yeah, I think there are several reasons for that. One of it is like the construction industry around the world is very tight margins, and there's a big risk profile that you need to manage. And people tend to do what they're used to do because they are managing all sorts of other risks for supply chain, currency fluctuation, resource, all of that. And you look at, for example, McKinsey's report published 2023, and they said we're in 2023 and looking 100 years back, the construction industry lots of many ways resembles 1923. We're still having scaffolding, bricklaying, and it hasn't moved. And we seem to have digitized well in the offices with the BIM, with solutions, albeit maybe not integrated, as Lama mentioned. But there's a lot of digitization in the office that's not moving to site. Maybe we're using a little bit of scanning, a little bit of robotic stations, but still not as other industries. And coming back to again Lama's point on having a platform that maybe like Navatech, where we're legitimizing the use of WhatsApp. So workers really use WhatsApp, but with Navatech we managed to or managing to jump on the back of this, extracting the information, analyzing it, and feeding back strategies downstream to the workers on health and safety. So now we use the simple tool that's likable to our end user persona, which is our site worker, rather than sitting with the management what they want to do from a control room perspective. So we need to have
Yeah.
this feedback.
Yeah, and that's exactly, but going back to the first point, right, where we're not trying to fix the people, right? The people like to use tools like WhatsApp. We're fixing the problem, and the problem is with the lack of transparency with the data inside WhatsApp, the lack of structure that you get from the data in WhatsApp. So, absolutely. And Ben, kind of a similar question to you. You know, like the way that construction sites look and feel are very similar to what they were like historically, right?
Yeah, and I know you politely said about me being around for decades. It's not quite as long as that, but in general, I think if you look at a construction site today, at the sharp end, when we're actually building the product, it isn't like massively different to perhaps when I started or to one of my old bosses I remember him saying, if you brought the guys back who built the pyramids, they would probably recognise elements of how we operate in the field today, and I think that's the opportunity that's in front of us. If we don't grasp it and start to understand how we can move to a better delivery model of construction, dare I say manufacturing, because the way that if you brought those same guys with the pyramids back into an automotive industry or a manufacturing plant, it would be wildly different. And I'm not saying we can go to that extreme perhaps immediately, but we do need to start making progress towards it. So I think the risk is for us of not adopting technology and not digitizing the way that we work, but with a very clear plan of doing it. Going back to my point earlier about people just saying, let's go buy this next product. Why haven't we got any AI in the business? Let's just go and bring something in. That actually imports problems as well. But if we use the filter of, well, what's the exam question that this piece of technology is going to answer?
Yeah.
And do we really understand what it is that we're trying to fix? And we have that opportunity to reduce friction, create efficiency, better production, better use of materials, whether it's energy or actual physical virgin materials in what we construct. So I think using the exam question as a filter, that initial filter, is where we need to start, and then you can move on to, well, what are the potential solutions, and then the engagement with the workforce and saying, does this actually make your life easier? Do we deliver a better product, or like I say, are we just importing more challenge into what is already a complex place to exist in the work? So I think the risk is we don't adopt technology, we don't diversify, we don't digitize, but with a clear plan. Otherwise, we're just going to create more of the same, and I think that would be a travesty. Because we simply cannot keep constructing like we do. It's alarming.
Yeah, and look, you and I have talked about this, and anybody that knows me, I talk about this quite a lot. Is not deploying tech for tech's sake, and now it's kind of the same with AI, right? Not deploying AI for AI's sake. I've had numerous conversations with clients where they're wanting to do something and apply AI to it, and we've kind of looked at it and said, you don't need AI to do that, right? There's other more simple and more effective ways of doing that. And so let's kind of look at something that maybe the guys that built the pyramids, they probably wouldn't recognize, and that's building data centers, right? I think all involved in this kind of it's nascent, but it's not, right, in terms of as an asset class. And I've been having lots of conversations, especially in the last 3 or 4 months, where data centers seem to have, or there's a perception that safety is managed differently when we're building data centers. The conversations I've had where I see there seems to be more of an onus on safety performance, and that's driving a massive interest in digital safety tools, right? So we're getting a lot of pull into this kind of asset class. And especially compared to other types of projects that I interact with, right? Because we work across different types of asset class. Why do you think that is? Ben, I'm going to come to you first, considering that's kind of Digital Reality's bread and butter. Why is safety kind of different with data centers?
I don't necessarily think it's different. I think every part of industry, whatever the end product is, whatever part of industry you're working with, it's aviation or oil and gas or energy or data centers or whatever it be, each carry a risk profile. And I never think it's always about one thing. So if you think about the industry that might be data centers, the kind of exposures that people are used to, the environments that they've existed in might be from high hazard environments before, but it's from an energy company. So naturally you're importing perhaps a different mindset, a different view of what a risk looks like. So I wouldn't say, I think every industry has its own theme, I think. But a lot of the profiles, I think, are pretty much similar. If you can have catastrophic failure in nearly every single industry that we can think about right now. How they manage that usually is maybe 20% particular to that industry, and 80% of, well, how do you manage risk effectively and efficiently? But then you start to think about, well, those other stakeholders that are in it, And perhaps we exist in a world where we are dealing with people building applications or whatever it might be in technology. So again, people's experiences might be driven by what they've been, the industries they've been in, whether they've been working for a big app developer or whatever it might be. And so they're naturally more inclined to have those conversations around technology.
Okay.
Whereas perhaps if you go into a different environment and technology is not so prevalent and it's not you're not critical infrastructure around delivering it, you might not be inclined to have those conversations. So I
can see that. Okay, fair.
I think it's different, but everyone has a different risk profile, I think.
And Ali, do you agree? Do you agree with the perception that I've built up, or is your perception different?
No, I don't think building data centers is riskier than other infrastructure projects. But what data centers, you could see it as an opportunity because the speed to market that clients and end user are wanting is bringing an opportunity of off-site fabrication or emphasis on off-site fabrication. As a company now, we've got new products like power modules, where we're manufacturing them on off-site, containerized generators, and similar. And when you're manufacturing off-site, that's increasing, reducing health and safety risks, increasing the quality, and reducing the number of people on site in terms of the health aspect as well, which is really important. People talk about safety more, but health is also important with fast-track project stress on people. So if you do more off-site, then that's helping both health and safety, ensuring delivery on time and reducing health and safety hazards. So data centers are opportunities, and they're bringing solutions that we could use in other types of projects as well.
Yeah, and again, Lama. So how do you see kind of technology and helping this, right? And so we talked about the fact that maybe as an asset class is not so different to others, but because of the speed at which data centers are required to be built is driving more innovative ways of delivering them, which has inherent safety implications and inherently making us think about how we can do more safely. What about the overlay over the top of it? How do you see that evolving?
So as a type of projects, data centers are definitely unique. So they're large, complex, fast-paced, as Ali was mentioning now, often running around the clock, specialized trades, working all at once. But at the end of the day, as Ben and Ali were saying, same as other type of projects, they need to stay ahead of competition, stay ahead of time, hitting timeline, cutting costs, and protecting their reputation. And with the right tech in place, they get presented an opportunity to standardize in order to provide this fast pace, lessons learned, learn from previous project, start right, quick, action, plan ahead, and go ahead and run with the speed that you need to deliver on. They're in a much better position to do all of that while also keeping their people safe and their clients happy, right? So of course, with the right choice of a platform that allows them the flexibility to do that in order to get the insight that they need to automate the checks and to help coordinate across teams, not after the fact.
Yeah.
Prakash, I mean, just picking up on a couple of those points that we shouldn't lose. When we were talking about shifting to a more manufacturing mindset, if I was to look at data centers, then that opportunity to modularize, to be more component build, to think more in that kind of manufacturing mindset, I think is absolutely opportunity. And whilst we think, data centers and technology and, being able to do this call right now has been around for many, many years, it's still recent history if you think about the evolution of technology. So I think there's an opportunity for this market to progress.
Yeah.
Certainly it doesn't carry all the baggage that perhaps other parts of construction do.
Yeah.
But that's there for us to tackle, I think, is just thinking about a more manufacturing mindset and therefore redefine some of the safety outcomes and how we can influence things that are being delivered.
No, I think that's fantastic to look at it from that perspective, right? If we consider data centers not to be too different from other projects, but we've got an opportunity to do things differently, then as Ali mentioned, perhaps we've got an opportunity to try and almost feed some of the change back into other asset classes, right? So I think there's a great opportunity there. Brilliant. I think generally we're all coming to this kind of consensus that standing still, especially when it comes to kind of digitalization, is perhaps maybe going backwards, right? If we do nothing, we're kind of going to get left behind. And I know we've been all been involved in deploying innovative solutions. What I'd like to kind of get examples of from each of you is where you've succeeded in making a change, or where you've seen innovative solutions have an impact. And I'm particularly interested in ones like that didn't necessarily mean that the technology was the driver, or that where technology had an unintended consequence to that change. Lama, if we can start with you.
So we always say that technology should meet the workers where they are, right? So if safety technology adds friction, for example, or takes too long to use, or it's too complicated, people just won't use it. They don't have time to learn a complex tool if it's not easy enough to be used on site. That's why, in any choice of technology and platform, we need to think of the ease of use first and a mobile first experience, meeting the action where it's actually happening on site. And in real projects, the tools that succeed are simple, fast, and easy. Now, we've seen definitely great results when we move the processes into a platform. For example, we have a client that works with data center projects that have seen a big boost in safety reporting, like just an increase by around 40% of reporting by speed, just
Mm,
because we just made it easier to report on observations and incidents and activity on site and approvals through the platform, right? Permits,
yeah.
we get to do permits that historically would take hours into minutes.
Mm,
That's just because everyone is using or seeing the same information live with the right visibility across the different departments and the different levels of visibility.
yeah.
But also, we've seen other cases where even with the best tools in hand, they fail to stick just
Mm,
because either the process itself is complex or the tool itself is complex. So
yeah.
that's why also in the choice of technology, usability matters. We need to make sure that our team, our people are involved in the decision. We have the ease of use in mind and they know the benefit of it and the overall vision of the organization. On another note, as well, we do know that technology itself is an instigator for behavioral change,
Yeah.
especially if the team know that they will be reported more often or there's going to be visibility on the information of happening on site. And something we chatted early on together, Prakash, is that how sometimes companies see an increase of quality of work, not because of how great the tool is, but just simply because the team know, or the notion of having
Mm,
the technology that would report on the work that is being done on site. That
yeah.
has nothing to do with the technology itself, but that's an impact on a behavior, right?
Yeah. 100%. Brilliant. And Ben, kind of similar question to you about the implementation of technology and what the impact of that has.
If you look at how we exist in society in general, some of the most successful applications, or whether it might be Amazon or Facebook or Instagram, to Lama's point, they're very easy to use. They're intuitive.
Yeah.
And yet when we step into the business environment, sometimes I think this is my comment right at the beginning of this session we're having now, is that we just import complex processes into a same digital format. We're not actually thinking about how the technology can reduce that friction and make them easier to use. So I think there's the massive opportunity to be able to get information in a way that is consumed in the way that they might do in society in general.
Mm,
Yeah, they're buying something online, whether they're creating something, whether they're just posting. We live in a lot of visuals, and yet when we get into some safety processes, they tend to be really complex, wordy processes.
yeah.
There's two examples that I would offer up. One was around, if you're a worker at the front line, and we've got to that point of being not able to mitigate the risk by the time the work is done, of course. What you would need to be able to do is get the information to them. So we created a hub model on a mobile phone for the individual to use it more as an assistant.
Mm,
So it's not taking away their competence as an individual, but actually create an assistant to them to be able to get content in a really efficient visual way
yeah.
through a safety hub. But like you said, it's not always about technology. And the other example, I guess, about how you can get people to adopt is back to this: what's the exam question and how can you attack it?
Yeah.
And when you had 40,000 guys spread across the Middle East, How do you create that level of engagement where people are excited about safety and starting to offer up solutions?
Mm.
And what we found was, under this premise that people are not blockers, they're not the problem, they're the solution. Really engaging and having proper, not 20,000 people stand downs, but small groups of people where you start to listen to the
Yeah.
challenges that they're being faced with. We're a conversational species, aren't we? We're very social creatures. So why we don't break it down? And we did this, and just on simple raising observations or getting feedback, we went from like 5,000 a month to 120,000. And some people might say, well, what do you do at 120,000? Well, the most important thing to me was that we had a community of people, 40,000 individuals who are interested in having conversations.
Yeah.
Simply by setting up a framework where we had like those sessions and we sat down and facilitated with supervisors, with frontline workers. So what's the difficult things that you're contending with today?
Yeah.
What prevents you from being successful and delivering something safely?
Brilliant.
There's so much intelligence there that
Yeah.
doesn't need technology. It needs us to stop delivering safety in a boardroom and start creating the environments where people genuinely tell us how hard it is to work safely.
Yeah.
And sometimes it will need a tech solution. Sometimes it will need a redesign. But ultimately, you never find out unless you go and have those conversations. So, two is one's technology based, the other one's cost you nothing.
Absolutely. And Ali, what in terms of the approach to technology, I think at BK Golf you've taken a really unique approach in terms of on the way that you see technology and you see technology as a partnership. So I really like to kind of talk about that.
Yeah, personally, I would like to work with technology providers as real partnership where we invest in each other's interest. And investing is not paying money, but if we work with people like yourself in Nevatech, you have a tool and let's grow it together to suit our requirement. At the same time, we're helping you to grow. So we're giving you information about how we do things, health and safety, and you're adapting your tool rather than giving us a ready-made solution or a box and you're asking us to pay yearly subscriptions. So we need to grow it to resolve our pain points, if you want to call it. So it's a true partnership.
And this, I just wanted to touch on this really quickly before we move. So, if anyone else has got any questions, please post them in the comments chat. We've got one more question each to the panelists, and then we'll go to the questions from the audience. But to your point, Ali, I think one of the reasons I really enjoy working with you and the BK Golf team is because of that ethos, right? Is that you're not seeing this as a transaction that you pay us some money and we deliver you a product, right? You're seeing this truly as a partnership. And Ben, you and I have spoken about this so many times where I think you've told me that the reason that you like working with us and the team is because we're not trying to force you down a solution, right? We listen to what the problem is and then try and come up with a solution together rather than tell you what the solution is. And I think the whole kind of theme of this was about the art of conversation and listening, and yes, our products are all about conversation, but also the way that we deliver it, the service that we deliver, the way that we deliver it is about having conversations, right? So I think it's a great way to kind of sum up the discussion points so far. And just the final kind of really quick question I want to ask each of you before we go to the audience is what does the future hold? How do you see tools and especially the influence of AI impacting how we manage and kind of deliver safety and the outcomes? Lama, I'll come to you really quickly, kind of like a minute line about that.
We're definitely all excited about AI and what it can actually do and how it can help the construction move forward. But it's in parallel, it's a great tool to have, but it's not a magic fix as well. We need to first fix the basics and then go into what AI can do for us. Getting the information in one place, centralized structure, and ready to be analyzed is what needs to be done first. And then open up the door for AI to spot patterns, to detect trends, to the root cause analysis, making sure that we have the right information to do like the smart decisions that is needed with the real data. And now you're not just reacting, right? You're planning ahead. You can see the unforeseen as well, and even AI can start recommending actions based on previous projects. But it definitely doesn't work unless you give it the data, the right data to come up with and to work off of. So we're moving from like a passive reporting to a proactive prevention and giving the people the right tools in order to catch things earlier. So and just to wrap it up with the Procore investment, definitely Procore is, we're very proud of our investments in AI and Copilot and agents and agentic AI, etc. But also we need to centralize and structure the data and go into the journey with our clients to get the basics, get familiar, and then present AI into the future.
Brilliant. Ali, same question to you. Where do you think we're going with all of this?
We'll go back to simplicity, and hopefully AI tools will give people at the work front a voice to bring their ideas up, like bottom-up feedback back into the system, because we're all, as human beings, I guess we have innovation in our genes, but what stops people against presenting their ideas, maybe presentation skills or where they are in the organization. So far, the majority of health and safety initiatives are bottom-up strategies coming down to people who are doing the work. But sometimes I feel if AI could, through simplistic tools, people could write their opinion, take pictures and say, well, maybe there is another way of doing this, and AI could filter this up and give people that are really doing the work voice, rather than people like me sitting in the office and writing procedures and method statements that may not relate 100% to what people
I love
do.
that. I love that. Ben, for the final kind of word from you.
I guess we could ask some AI platform what does the future hold, but that might only be driven by the intelligence that it has. I think about AI in terms of it being an assistant. It's a partner. Whether people talk about co-pilots, and I think we need to think about it like that. I think we should embrace the opportunity. I know change and adoption of things that are new and things that are happening so fast in this space can be a bit scary sometimes. But I think if we step into it and be a bit bold, brave, curious, humble, I don't know about any of the guys that have joined us here now about what their competencies around technology and AI. You and I have had many conversations around that, and you've been a long-term mentor of mine in it. But I think we need to be brave. We need to be curious about what can it give us. Again, under the filter of not just importing more tech. Go and get a mentor. Understand what this space is happening with. Understand what the risk profile of your business looks like. Understand what those exam questions might be, and diligently go around working out, well, what could be the answer? What could be the solution? And just take those small steps forward each and every time. I think Ali said about the small steps and Lama about, start simple. You don't need to reinvent the internet.
Yeah.
You don't need to create, a new fighter plane. You don't need to create this brand new supercar.
Yeah.
You can just start simple that actually fixes some point that you might have in the business. And if you're not confident about the subject matter, go and get a mentor.
Yeah.
It's fun. But go out with curiosity and find out how we can be better. Because we can't carry on doing the same as it is today.
Fantastic. And Ben, just for the benefit of everyone else, so 10 or so years ago, maybe 9 years ago, Ben allowed me, and he was really gracious, to mentor him. It was almost, we call it reverse mentorship. And even though I was really junior in my career, I learned so much from that process, right? From almost like teaching you about what technology can do, but you teaching me about where it could be applied and where it can make a difference. Not again from some of the, like we talked about some of the things, not from a technological perspective, but from a behavioral perspective, from a change in in be able to create an environment for that change to happen. And so I think it works both ways, right? And so to anybody who's kind of listening and maybe kind of a bit fearful or hesitant to do this, is find people to go and speak to who maybe are a bit more confident with this stuff, and then exchange these ideas. I think both parties benefit massively from it. So look,
and because that goes, sorry to cut across, but that goes back to the beginning that you said about the audience we've got here. This is not a bunch of safety people talking about this. These are different stakeholders that have interested parties in creating the solution. That's how we need to think about it. No silos, collaborative working in an environment to create a better future. That's what it's about.
100%, 100%. All right, cool. I'm going to take a few questions that have been coming in on the chat. So the first one's to Lama, right? It's about your experiences when digital systems make real world differences on site. What do you think was the one key thing that made that work?
If it's up to one key thing, it's an easy to use mobile first application. Um, and I think we touched point on that earlier a bit. But if the system is not easy enough to be used, no one will use it, right? With construction, we don't have the luxury of time. It needs to be something simple, and I don't need to wait to come back to my office or after work to remember and to join the photos with my notes, with what I remember, with the issue. I need something that runs. I have so many information that runs into my head on a daily basis on site. If I'm a construction manager or engineer or a foreman or a supervisor, I need the ability to go ahead and directly log in what I'm working on. So
Yeah.
I need something live. I need something easy that is a partner that I can work with live, even like if I'm at the end of the world and just want to log my information there.
Okay, fantastic. Another question. Someone spoke about how you need to meet your clients where they are, or where the customers where they are. It said, I think that matters a lot. How workers still fall back to old bits. So how do you think you can actually shift behaviors and not just systems? Ben, I think we've had a discussion about this even in the preparation for this, right?
Yeah, so I think people need to see value, and if they see value, you will, you'll naturally start to make progress about, adopting different ways of working, and you have to be able to have that content that's, I think Lana was saying, you have to be able to have that process that's there in your hand, dare I say, and you're constantly reminded of something, and naturally over time, that's how you start to be. Now you do drift for sure. We know we make mistakes in life. I haven't met anyone yet that doesn't. But if you constantly have that assistant with you as a reminder about how you can use content in the right way at the right time, naturally you'll start to progress to a different way of working. And I think ultimately for me, that's how we can create that excitement, dare I say, that fun, that interest, because you're giving people different content in different formats.
Yeah, and giving them that agency, right, to be able to consume, to request and consume it in a way that they want to do it, right, rather than
Yes.
forcing them to do it in a certain way. No.
Which is how we do it in society.
Yeah, exactly, right. You get this plurality, right? You get this choice of how you request and consume information.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. There's so many questions. I don't think we're going to get through them all. I'll pick another one. The future of AI integration is into things like BIM, flagging coordination issues and things. Ali, I know you and I, when we first moved to Dubai, this was one of the big things that we did, and you've been really successful in kind of integrating building information modeling into your business as usual, right? It's how you guys operate. It's kind of just the way things are done. How are you seeing AI impact that, and then what impact does that have on safety?
Well, that's important. And before we're talking about the AI impact, we need to think of the boundaries here, because you got the digital world and people that are really good in digital aspects, and people like us on the engineering side, maybe we do a little bit of digital. And this is where we need, I think, cross boundary spanners. And an example is yourself. You come from civil engineering background, and you're now working with digital and IT, and you're a perfect example where you can span these boundaries and see how we can integrate AI into a real solution in our issues with coordination. And there are lots of aspects that we can automate in what we do manually at the moment through AI, but we still need to keep the final decision made by a human being. That's the key aspect.
Yeah, and I think we've touched on that the whole discussion, right? Is that this thing, AI should become an assistant. Technology should be an assistant to you, not to replace you or to kind of give away the control, right? And so, what the final question, really, really quickly, as AI and digital tools reshape construction safety, how can we ensure that we genuinely protect people, not just collect data? keep while still keeping the human touch alive. Related to what we just said, Ben, can I just come to you quickly on this one, and then we'll wrap.
Look, I think we do drift into, let's say, just producing more charts and more graphs and more pie charts, and for me, that's not really what AI and technology should be about. It might help us bring the silos together to get better intelligence to make decisions, but ultimately, I think we should be focused on how do we use AI and technology to remove the friction, to enable better decisions, to create better design, to create better programs, all of which trigger potential safety outcomes.
Yeah.
I think that's how we need to think about technology and the opportunity, not in terms of producing more graphs and pie charts, like I say, but actually starting to understand what intelligence we can get from wider data sets that at the moment, like we've been saying, are siloed.
Brilliant.
This is the opportunity that is in front of us for us.
Fantastic. Look, I think we could have carried on all day, but I think we'll wrap it up there. First, I want to thank everybody who joined us online for taking time out of your day, especially on a day like today with World Safety Day. I'm sure there's been lots of different events and demands of time. So thank you so much. I'd like to thank the marketing and comms team from Navatech who have really helped pull this event together. So thank you guys so much. Everybody knows who they are. And of course, a massive, massive thank you to our panelists, Ben, Ali, Lama, your amazing and unique perspectives and sharing those with everybody. Look, although we're using this World Safety Day to focus the attention on this crucial subject, we must all strive to ensure that we treat safety and its reverence every single day. We're launching or kind of relaunching two products at Navatech this week, NiFlow and NiHub, and both of those are hopefully designed or will help do some of what we talked about today, right? Break down some of the silos, meet customers where they already are, give you simple, intuitive tools to use. So if you guys want to find out more about it, I think there's a QR code going to be coming up somewhere here. Scan the QR code, get in touch with us, connect with us on LinkedIn. Any of us, you can find out more, and I'm sure the other panelists would be welcome to any other questions around this topic. And hopefully we'll be doing some more of these. So join us on the next one. Thank you everybody. Great having you all.